Hey everyone, it's Ross Anderson here from Brave New World Wine in Sydney, and coming to you with episode number 9 of Meet the Maker, where we hope to inform you, entertain you, and educate you on all things wine and the personalities behind these brands around the world. Now, today is a humdinger of an episode, one of my all-time favorite wine estates, and one that I've been very fortunate to visit on many occasions. It's kept its charm, it's old, it's historic, and it's one of South Africa's leading flagship wineries. But on another note, it's been an adventurous day down here in sunny Sydney. We've had beautiful weather, and I took a short trip, which wasn't really a short trip. It was around about 550 kilometres at the end of the day, but I drove down to the beautiful Shoalhaven area of New South Wales, and we spent a day with friends out at Coolangatta Estate. And it's days like this where I absolutely love what we do in the wine industry, where you can go down to a cellar door in Sydney, get home, pick up the phone, or the video in this case, and dial into the other side of the world and talk to some leading winemakers. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Eddie Turner, who is the marketing manager, and Altus Treurnicht from Meerlust Estate, who is the winemaker. And we are absolutely honored to have these guys on the show. So let me bring them in, and we will do that, and we will unmute our microphones. Gentlemen, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes. Morning.
Good evening or good morning.
Good evening, yeah.
And 8 p.m. in Sydney. So thanks for joining us. It's great to have you here on Meet the Makers, and it's been one of those that we've been really looking forward to for quite some time. So how are things going over in my old stomping ground in Stellenbosch, guys? How's things on the ground in South Africa at the moment?
Well, I think Stellenbosch itself has obviously had a bit of a devastating impact from COVID. I mean, the whole region relies heavily on tourism, on the hospitality industry, and the wine industry as an employer of people. So, you know, the impact has been quite bad. I think from the wine perspective, we're back in business. We had a lockdown about 4 months where we weren't allowed to sell any wine locally, and we were only allowed to export wine. So probably most wineries lost about 4 months of sales, which is, you know, you're not going to get back. But
Yeah.
The attitude is positive, and I think we're all ready to go again. Yeah.
Absolutely. And during this lockdown, you guys obviously, I'm assuming you still came to work, you still came to the farm, which is close to visitors?
Yeah, we probably had the shortest lockdown, because Altus was allowed to finish the harvest, because obviously we were still bringing in grapes when COVID struck.
Yeah.
And so we were all back on the farm from the 1st of May. Yeah. So we haven't been working remotely, we've actually been back on the farm, yeah. But no visitors, obviously. Yeah.
Did you use the lockdown time to do anything that you never really get to, a bit of like house cleaning, or did you do anything new perhaps that's been on the to-do list for forever?
Well, I think I painted my house. No, you know, there wasn't much for us to do at work, but we obviously looked at things like online sales and getting newsletters prepared. So when it did open, we could actually immediately go into online business. Yeah. So, and I think Altus did quite a lot of work at the cellar itself. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from our side, we were just actually going on with some of the harvest, so doing the last pump overs on some of the tanks, finishing fermentation off, just doing the nitty-gritty stuff which just needed to be done, just to finish off harvest for us. Yeah, so we were also a little bit on skeleton staff, or slightly lower people, but yeah, we just maintained just to get the wine in barrel. Those sorts of stuff. Yeah.
So your basic daily duties you were allowed to perform,
yes,
during that period, because we were watching it from this side of the world going, this is crazy. And Eddie, as you know, we had a shipment of wine that got sort of stuck in that last third of that transit, and it took forever to get out of South Africa because there was no containers. And then when we found a container, there was no boats.
Yeah.
And then when we found a container in a boat, then it was delayed leaving the harbour, and then it got delayed in Singapore, and then it came to Sydney, and the docks were on strike, so it sat in the reef for a week and a half on a boat just off the coast. So it was.
We got
we
got the wine to the harbour at that stage, and then there was no staff to actually load them. They were all away on COVID. So there was another delay there, probably 2 or 3 weeks. That was crazy. So people lost export orders, and fortunately we didn't. But yeah, no, it was crazy times.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about a lot of excess wine sitting around the traps from cancelled exports. Is that still the case? Or are these wineries looking for other avenues that you know of?
Well, just looking at the bulk wine prices have absolutely crashed. So so there's definitely an oversupply of wine at the moment. Yeah, so there's a lot of wine out there.
And just on the whole consumer side, what's the perception in the market now? Is consumer confidence coming back? Is it a mixture of visits to the cellar door? Is your online spiking? Is confidence coming back? Is the bottom line really? I guess.
I mean, we just had October has been a record month for us locally in South Africa, which is quite amazing. It's the highest month we've had in something like 4 years. But I think that's also a little bit of panic buying. People are concerned that they're going to shut the bottle stores again. So, and that's mostly driven by Johannesburg. Johannesburg is the big business centre of South Africa. Whereas Cape Town, I think, is still struggling, because I think we rely more on tourism here. So I think we're going to probably have a tough December, unless the locals come and visit, but I think we're not going to get any foreign visitors there. And cellar door sales look good, but they're mostly online, and we're getting very few visitors to the actual estate. Yeah.
Right. So whilst we're talking about your beautiful wines, we've got 4 wines on the table. We're going to open and tour them with you, if that's all right. Altus, here's your neck of the woods. We've got Chardonnay 19. So we've still got a few bottles of 18, but I'm just putting them in the cellar. And this is the 19. So I'm going to pop the Coravin in here. And I was wondering if you could maybe give us a little bit of background to this wine. I mean, we've shown the 18 to a couple of venues, on-premise venues here. And the first words that always pop out is classic, or French style, or Burgundian style Chardonnay, and they love it. What are your views on the Chardonnay, Altus?
Yeah, for us, the 2019 vintage was actually a very nice vintage for us when it comes to the white more than for the red. For us on Meerlust, I mean, we have got a lot of replanting on Meerlust as well with Chardonnay. So we've got a variety of clones which we are using but it's mainly the well-known French clones that we are using on Meerlust. The oldest one planted in 2007. Also in the 19, this is the vineyard, which was also the highest component of the 19 for me. So 19, yeah, it was a nice starting vintage, not the best going on, and for the reds in particular, but on the white, it was for us preserving a lot of nice fruit for us in the cellar as well. I'm agreeing with you. Our Chardonnay is definitely a Burgundian style. Definitely, it's not over oaked, and we don't try to over oak. We try to really get the nuances of fruit flavors coming off, not really masking it with a lot of oak. A delicious wine for me, a great food companion. Yeah, very nice.
And Altus, how long has Chardonnay been planted at Meerlust?
Recently had a tasting of Wine Magazine did a tasting of Chardonnays, and it was one of the top 10 in that particular tasting. Done very well for us.
To answer your question there, Ross, so Meerlust started in
There's a slight delay, guys, sorry.
Sorry, so Meerlust started in 1995, which was the first production of Chardonnay on the property. And that was under Giorgio Dall'Accia when he was still the winemaker, with Chris being the assistant winemaker. So the pathway from Meerlust with Chardonnay started in 1995. But then it was, I think Giorgio actually got a little bit more I would say, a little bit more malactic fermentation. Chris, I won't say shifted it a little bit, but we have done not as much malactic fermentation, try to preserve the fruit a little bit more, looking a little bit on the barrel components and barrel aging as well. But like I say, the most for me contribution is the vineyards, the different vineyards which we also planted, which is making a huge influence in this wine.
So, and please correct me or add to what I'm about to say, but Meerlust is very, very close to the coast. It's within, is it within 10 kilometers from False Bay? And it's very flat where the homestead is. And what happens to the terroir there or the surface? Is there undulation? Is there hills? I can't quite remember. It's been quite a long time since I've been out there. And where on the farm is the Chardonnay grown?
So the Chardonnay for us, Meerlust haven't got a lot of big elevation above sea level, but what we do have is the sea breeze, and that's also what Meerlust is very known for. So we always got a very coolness coming from 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, running through the vineyards, which is cooling down the vineyards for us very nicely. So although our elevation doesn't exceed 250 meters above sea level, we've got this nice sea breeze which is actually coming in and cooling off the vines for us. The Chardonnay is being scattered. We've got some which is on the lower soils, which is more a little bit, I would say, alluvial riverside soils, lower slopes on the hill, which we got plots there. Then also we've got ones which is a little bit more on a clay with the subsoil of a lot of stone standing on the property. But Meerlust got a lot of diverse soils. I mean, like South Africa, we also got a big diverse soils. In one block there can be 4 different soil types which you will actually find in one block. So yeah, for us, we do try to plant them, how can I say, more specifically so that we can actually harvest, but our vines is standing a little bit not on the highest part of the Meerlust.
And while we're talking about the wines, Eddie, what's your favorite? And you can't really have a favorite son, but I guess you can, or daughter. What's your favorite wine in the range? Apart from the obvious Rubicon.
Well, when I joined Meerlust, I wasn't a Pinot Noir drinker at all, and I've certainly learned to appreciate Pinot Noir in the last 10 years that I've been here. And if you look at the wine we consume the most at Meerlust, if we're just having a casual lunch, it's probably Pinot Noir. You know, it suits our climate so well as well. Say on a really hot summer's day, the bottle of Pinot that's been chilled down to about 18 degrees is fantastic. It just can't be beaten. Yeah, so I certainly appreciate Pinot a lot more than I did previously.
How about you, Altus?
Yeah, I actually want to agree there with Eddie, but now I need to differ. So for me, I would, I like the Chardonnay 2019. To be honest, I just recently told Chris, I think the 2019 is for me one of the nicest ones when I've been on Meerlust and away and back again, what I can remember. But yeah, I'm very having a liking the Chardonnay 2019 in particular. So yeah, I will go with the Chardonnay, especially now. It's quite warm now today, so I like the Chardonnay. Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful wine, the Chardonnay. Tell us, guys, tell us a little bit about your story. We've got some interesting backgrounds here. Eddie, you joined Meerlust in 2010. Yeah. And prior to that, you've had prior experience in wine with some of the big guys. Tell us a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, so I started after university. I finished university in about 1980, so I'm the old one at Meerlust at this stage. And my boss at Anglo-American then took over Anglo-American Farms, which actually owned Boschendal, which is obviously a very well-known estate in South Africa. So I started at Boschendal in 84. And then Anglo bought a property called Vergelegen in Somerset West in 1986. And there was just an open piece of land. There wasn't a single vineyard planted. And I was part of the team that developed Vergelegen. And eventually we opened Vergelegen in 1992. and released the first range of wines. And then I stayed at Treurnicht until 2009, after having done just over 30 years, I think, between Rochdale and Treurnicht, and then came across and joined Hannes and his team here at Meerlust. Yeah. So basically, since 1984, in the wine industry. Yeah.
I used to play cricket at Radloff Park, which backs onto Treurnicht.
That's right. Yeah.
So and Treurnicht is one of my. It's just such a beautiful site, and that winery up on the hill with the gravitational flow, it was just something unique. Altus, tell us a little bit about your story as well, because you're with Meerlust, and then you go away, and I'm not quite sure where you went to, but I suspect it was Delheim, and please correct me if I'm wrong, for a stint, and then you've come back recently. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, look, I was only born in 1983, so I haven't got that huge line that Eddie got. But I started in 2006. My first harvest as a student, just coming from college and studying in winemaking, and was on Delheim. So my run in the South African wine industry was done at Delheim, and then I've then went a little bit overseas to a harvest in California. 2007, I've actually started on Meerlust, but only as a student doing my viticulture diploma on Meerlust. So I was then working with the vines in the vineyards. And then Meerlust approached me to stay on as an assistant winemaker. And I've stayed on until June 2015, when I then moved to Delheim as winemaker at Delheim. And I've joined the Meerlust team again in November 2018. So I suppose I was only for a short while away, but yeah, I've had a little bit of, I suppose, a gap year from Meerlust. So yeah, I've joined again in November 2018.
And so it's interesting, the Meerlust story with Giorgio at the helm and starting there, and then with Chris as the assistant, and then Chris taking over. And I'm assuming you were working with Chris at a certain period through that?
Yeah, so I've worked with Chris from 2007 until recently, the end of 2019.
So you've learned from a guy that learned from a master, essentially, I guess. Tell us, so Meerlust, the farm, was settled in 1693 and became a wine estate or a wine producing area from around about 1750, 1760. When do these varietals that we know today, the Cabernet, the Merlot, all of those things come online, and what were the first wines that were grown on Meerlust? Do you actually know?
Yeah, we do know. We had a few trial and errors on Meerlust. There was Sauvignon Blanc standing on Meerlust. There was a Pinotage. We actually got old bottles of 1976 still in the cellar. So yeah, Meerlust was very much a trial and error until the 1979, with the first Rubicon production, but not making into the market, and then the 1980, which was in the first release of Rubicon. So no, there was definitely a lot of trial and error, a lot of feeling out what is going to work and what's not working on the property. But yeah, we definitely got some of the old bottles, like the Pinotage 1976, still in the cellar. And it's a beautiful wine. We actually drunk a couple of them, but it's a beautiful wine. Yeah.
And so now we've touched on the wine that everyone, I guess, has become to know as the Meerlust flagship, and that is this bad boy over here, Rubicon 2016. Now, what we did, which I'm not sure if you gents are aware, but because we had all these delays with the shipping container, we decided, when I think it was just approaching Singapore, that we'd launch a pre-sale. So we started to sell the stock in the container before it landed, because it was just crazy. Number one seller, Rubicon. And so as soon as that landed and docked and we got a stock take, that's when we placed the next order with you literally a couple of weeks ago, which I believe is leaving Cape Town today. It was supposed to leave yesterday, but anyway, we're on the way. Can we talk about this amazing bottle? My first experience with wine, and one of the very first wines I ever tasted, was the 1982 Rubicon. and I've still got the bottle. It was given to me by Boetie Rithoff from Solly Kramer Group when I left South Africa. Actually, no, it was just before I left South Africa. And I drank it in Sydney about 10 years ago, and I kept the bottle. It just had a special meaning. And this wine has a lot of sentimental value to me. Can you tell me a little bit about the Rubicon story? And I'm going to pour some.
Okay,
Sorry,
so maybe I'll just give you a bit of background to the story. Actually originated from Hannes's father. Hannes is the current owner of Meerlust. He's the 8th generation of his family to preside over Meerlust. And his father, Nico, who visited Bordeaux in the late 60s, fell in love with the wine of Bordeaux, came back to South Africa, and then replanted on Cabernet, Cabernet Franc, with the ultimate goal of producing a Bordeaux-style blend. And together with George Chier in 1980, they decided they got the blend, but at that stage they didn't have a name for the wine. And blended red wines in South Africa at that stage were considered to be really cheap and nasty. And yeah, they were wanting to produce the flagship wine for the estate. So a professor from the University of Stellenbosch actually suggested the name Rubicon. And Rubicon dates back, the story goes to Caesar in 49 BC. And the Rubicon River was the northernmost boundary of the Roman Republic in those days. And Caesar was governing the area of Gaul, which was just north of the Rubicon River. And the Senate in Rome weren't very happy with Caesar. They wanted to recall him to Rome. And Caesar decided, well, he's going to return, but he's going to challenge the Roman Senate and cross the river with his troops. And if you crossed the Rubicon River with your troops, it was basically declaring war on Rome. And as he crossed the river, he said, Alia I acta est, which means the die is cast, which means that's a point of no return, you can't go back. And they thought it was really appropriate because Meerlust had reached the same point. They'd replanted the farm, they'd made the wine, there was no going back. And hence they decided that the name Rubicon would be appropriate for the wine, yeah. I'll leave this off to actually talk about the wine, yeah.
Before you tell us about the wine, this is 1980 that you released the first vintage of this wine, and
released in 84, but made in 80. Yeah.
So are you starting a trend? Is there anyone else making any kind of Bordeaux blended style wines at that time in South Africa?
We were one of the first. There was a property called Valkemient, owned by a guy called Willie Hofmeyer, and he also made he made a Bordeaux blend in 1979. So he actually produced the first one. Meerlust did produce one in 78, but they decided not to actually bottle it, or bottle it and market it. So we didn't make the first blend. Velcomien released the first Bordeaux blend, yeah. And then there was a whole flurry of Bordeaux blends thereafter, yeah.
And then we fast forward 40 years to where we are today, and the quality of the Bordeaux blend wines coming out of South Africa is next level, world standard, world class, competes with the absolute best from the old world and from, I associate really great Bordeaux blends with the Oregon area, Washington State up in the States. This powerhouse Bordeaux blends and likes of Rubicon, Uva Mira, Morgenster, all top level Bordeaux blends, and it's great to see South Africa making a name for itself in this style. But Altus, tell us a little bit about the wine.
So 2016, I think that was now just when I've left Meerlust, but 2016 was a difficult vintage for us, starting from the drought and going into the drought. 2016, the first year, and for me as well, looking back on the 2016, there's the blend consistent. What is significantly also about the 2016, it's got the lowest percentage of Cabernet Sauvignon, which was in the years that Rubicon was made. So currently the 2016, or the percentage is 49% Cabernet Sauvignon, 28% Merlot, with 20% Cabernet Franc, and then 3% Petit Verdot. So a blend of those Bordeaux cultivars, which is making this up being stored. And I think the significant thing for us, when we are making the Rubicon, we are assessing the year very quick. So just when the wines have actually completed malolactic fermentation, then we will start making the blend. And that blend we will cellar and mature it in oak for the rest of the year. So we are very quickly with making up the blend and then getting all those components together and let them mature and cellar together for the duration in barrel. The 2016, for me, it's got a very nice component of red fruit and dark fruit components in there. It's not only dominant for me on very blackberry disease. There's a little bit of red berries coming also through with a very nice tobacco at the back of the palate with a great body. Definitely something, and I think always Meerlust have done something unique, something on its own, not something that, not trying to mimic something. Rubicon is very standing on its own as a wine, um, not looking to, I would say, to the other blends, but it's really a standalone icon in South Africa. And I think the 2016 is beautiful. It's showing nice. It's got still a lot of quite young, a lot of age in front of it.
So interesting question. While you were talking there, I was just thinking about this. Is there a house style that you try and achieve with Meerlust Rubicon, and you will adjust the percentiles of the components to sort of get it to that, like in whiskey they have a distiller's generic blend, and it can be a high proportion of this and a low proportion of that just to get that flavor profile consistent. Is that something that Meerlust tries to do, or is it let's just see what the fruit quality is and let's go with the best quality direction? How do you determine that?
Yeah, for us, there must definitely be a golden thread amongst the Rubicon lines, but also Meerlust have replanted and also some of the Merlot productions. And what we have seen even now in 2020 on the blending table is suddenly the Merlot got a lot of structure. And although the cab got structure, but sometimes we at Meerlust, when we are on the blending table, we are amazed about the construction and flavor contribution that Merlot can give us. And in 2016, it was exactly the same case where the Cabernet Sauvignon didn't really give a lot of structure, and it was a lot of the Merlot which is actually gave a lot of the structure. So for us, we try to make the best Rubicon, regardless of what the percentage will be, but definitely with a golden thread that needs to run through the Rubicon line. Yes, and I mean we are very much determined, even on the quality side of the Rubicon, to keep Rubicon as our what we can produce, the quality that we can produce.
So one thing that has struck me about Meerlust consistently and continually is it's all very traditional based. I've been to the beautiful cellar door. It's old and rustic, and I don't think it's ever going to change, and I hope it never does change. I've been inside. Eddie's taken me inside the production area, and it's old and it's tight and it's confined. I think those were your words, Eddie. I can't quite remember. It was about 5 or 6 years ago that you were kind enough to show me through. And everything about what you do is traditional. And then, Altus, you mentioned a few minutes ago that there was Sauv Blanc and there was a Pinotage. So in that vein of questions, have you ever thought about maybe going down some of those more traditional South African flagship varieties like Chenin Blanc, or is the farm just not suited to that kind of production?
Yeah, look, for us, and I think that's why we actually got Chardonnay, which is doing great for us. Our setup in the cellar is to work with red wine. That's almost like the primary goal in the cellar. So Chardonnay nicely fit in. I can see, I mean, with Chenin Blanc and Sauvignon Blanc, especially with Sauvignon Blanc, that we aren't really equipped to work with that. I'm actually glad, I suppose. But yeah, Chardonnay, and I think it's definitely fitting in our oak regime as well, and handling. Our style of Chardonnay also making is very oxidative, not very reductive. So definitely, it's combining, how can I say, the red winemaking philosophy with Meerlust nicely, and that's how the cellar is unfortunately set up, or fortunately set up in this regard.
No, that makes perfect sense. I actually asked the same question to Arbri Birsela from Kononkorp, and he said, but we specialize in red wine. That's the setup. We don't need that. And they make a rosé and other things, but it seems like it's a similar philosophy. You're built for red wine production, and if there's a white wine that fits the shape that is coming through the red wine, then you may give it a go. I wanted to touch on the other wines that we import. This one in particular, this is Meerlust Red 2017. Tell us a little bit about this wine. We're not going to taste it tonight. This wine is incredibly popular here. We market it, and I hope we're doing it right, Eddie. We market it as a baby Rubicon or a declassified Rubicon. And I think, and I should know this, but I don't. I think it's sub $25, which is the sweet spot for really good quality red wine. And this is really starting to gain traction. Now, originally, this wine, the Meerlust Red, was only made in years where there was a declassified Rubicon. But then I believe that there was a UK demand that kept coming for it, so you started to make it as a production line. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe just to give you a bit of a background, the first red was actually produced in 1985, and that was a year that no Rubicon was produced, so it was a declassified Rubicon. Then in 1990, we didn't make Rubicon again and made a red. Then we had a long gap until 2002. We didn't make Rubicon, and then we made a red. And that red was then sold to the UK. And our importer loved the wine and said, can't we make a red for them every year? So every year we produced a red for the UK and then eventually to some export markets. But that red is not sold in South Africa. So the only time you'll find a Meerlust Red in South Africa is when it is a declassified Rubicon. And that happened again in 2011. And in fact, right at the moment, we're busy bottling the 2019 Rubicon. 2019 Red, which is the declassified Rubicon. There is no Rubicon 2019. Right. So a wine to be looking out for in the future, we'll be releasing it in about March next year, will be the 2019, which will be absolutely stunning. And that's a declassified Rubicon. So some vintages are, some vintages aren't. When it's not a declassified Rubicon, it's obviously made from younger vineyards and from wine that's not deemed good enough for the Rubicon or the Cabernet or the Merlot. So it's still pretty much a declassified Rubicon in a sense. Yeah.
So then, for an export perspective, we'll still be able to gain access to this beautiful wine.
Yeah, it's because it's a big vintage. It's obviously the entire Rubicon vintage, the entire red vintage, and we'll be selling that in South Africa. Yeah, but that's going to be a great wine. Although the 17 is a stunning wine as well. Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. So there's a 17 Rubicon and there's an 18 Rubicon.
But there's no 19. Yeah.
Okay, good. So we're okay at the moment. Good.
So what we will do is we'll go from 18, we'll go straight to 20 in Rubicon. There won't be a gap, but we'll skip a vintage. Yeah.
And then this little gem here, Cabernet 16. So we weren't too sure what to do when we first placed an order, and I think our very first order was very small, maybe 10 or 15 dozen. And then all of a sudden we got a hook into it, and some people really started getting into it. Tell us a little about this wine, the Cabernet 16.
So the 2016, look, I mean, on Meerlust Cabernet, definitely, like we can also see in the Rubicon, that's definitely the backbone of the wines for us. And definitely the Cabernet Sauvignon for us is standing on great site here. It's producing for us great wines as well. And Stellenbosch Cabernet, I mean, Stellenbosch is very known for Cabernet. The 2016 is also, we also are planting some newer production. So it's also the best cab will go into the Rubicon. But with that said, our Cabernet quality is exceptional. So that which is making the single or the Cabernet bottle is still very magnificent. And that's also in the 2016. The same, but a lot of more darker fruit. Even we sometimes give that one almost a little bit more oak. It can handle the oak very nicely. So we are giving it a more time in barrel, newer oak portion as well. But still, like I say, it's definitely the backbone for Meerlust and for the Rubicon. So yeah, a beautiful wine. A lot of dark fruit, very classical also in style.
Altus, I think you read my mind because I pulled both bottles forward, and my question was going to be the Cabernet that goes into the Cabernet, is it the same Cabernet that goes into here? But I think you answered that there. So that was a good catch. I don't know if you can see the screen, guys, but we've got a couple of comments coming through. I've got Simon Schroeder, who says, keep on harvesting, one of the best wines in the world. All will be back to normal soon, and then customers will play catch up, sterk to yellow, which is cool. And then we've got, let's see, who else? We've got a couple of messages coming through. We've got Roland Williams, great history of Anglo in wine. That's for you, Eddie. Heinrich, he wants some of the Bordeaux blend in his glass. And then Old School Valley is awesome. Oh, here we go. Here's an interesting one. Meerlust Rubicon, like Penfold's Bin 389, the Baby Grange. And that's very good. That's very good. That's a very good comparison. I'm assuming you're aware of Penfold's Grange and Penfold's Bin 389, which are similar, and one is Baby Grange, and I think you've got it going on here. And Esme, I'm not quite sure which wine you're talking about, Esme. She says it's my favorite. Which one? We've got 4. Please let us know.
I won't let you know, but Esme works for us. She's my export lady.
Oh, hang on, that's my Esme.
Esme does all your exports for you.
That would make sense. I spoke to her just the other day. Good. Altus, is there a variety that you'd really like to work with in the future?
Sure, I think if you're looking on the Bordeaux blends here, you're almost looking on Carmenere, which is maybe the other cultivar which is starting to be in planting and in production. Even in South Africa, single varieties or Carmenere being produced and bottled on its own. So maybe something to look out. But no, I think we are really reflecting back and see what we are doing on Meerlust, and reflecting also back and see how can we improve, and to keep what we have, and to not really go and look for a lot of other cultivars. I think we got it all there. We maybe just need to do a little bit tweaks here and there, but Carmenere is maybe the one jumping up in my mind. Yeah.
Interesting. And whilst we're talking about all the tradition in Meerlust, can you share anything about maybe the future plans for the site? Have you got anything planned that you're able to share with us? A lot of wineries can't share some of their stuff, and that's completely fine. But have you got anything that you've got in the wings that you're able to share? Putting you on the spot, Eddie.
For us, if it's in the cellar side, we are in the process, even with the bottling now, where we are using one of our barrel cellar, which we have actually revamp, I almost want to say, to accommodate a bottling line where we can do bottling of the wines. Because we are a estate, we need to bottle on premises. We need to make everything on premises. What's also, I think, what is great is that in the future we will slightly have a little bit more, how can I say, very small 1-ton fermenters in the cellar, where we will see how the new vines that we are picking the first crop or the second crop from, how they are doing, how we need to do the vinification of them, etc. So I think there's definitely some interesting development also on Meerlust. Yeah.
Sounds exciting. So small improvements internally is what it sounds like to me. Keeping the engine fine-tuned. Gents, tell us about your favorite wine memory. Not necessarily something that's happened at Meerlust, but maybe something that is stuck in your mind from the world of wine. I've got many of them. Unfortunately, they all involve being in barrel rooms with bottles of whiskey hidden under casks in Paarl, not mentioning wine estate by the name of Fondling, but that's another story. Have you got any favorite wine memories you'd like to share with us?
Altus, do you want to go first?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I think for me, the one thing which popped up, if I was in 2009 fortunate to go and harvest in Saint-Emilion, and me and a body of wine he was harvesting at Chateau Palmer, and we actually had contacts. So we gone to Palmer, Margot, Latour, and we drove and visited. And because we were students or working guys in the wine industry, they let us seeing the whole facility on the inside. So for me, that was definitely a highlight. Seeing all these chateaus, bottles which you are seeing only empty, maybe on the shelf, and now really get the chance to see and to see the entrances and to see the buildings and the people and and to taste the wine. Although maybe on the people you won't really know what they're saying, but still, great experience, great to be a part of that as well. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Eddie, how about yourself?
So the one that comes to mind to me, we normally have you probably know Winex, the wine show in Johannesburg.
I know well. I've worked it with Michael. Yeah.
And I remember one night standing behind the counter pouring wines, and this young girl, sort of late 20s, came up to me and she said, "You know what? If a guy asks you for a first date and you go out to a restaurant and he doesn't order a bottle of Rubicon, you should just end the relationship there and then." I thought that was a classic. I've got to use it for our promotions in future. Yeah. But I think there's a question about some Pinot down at the bottom there, Himmel and Arda. Yeah, strangely enough, Meerlust is one of the oldest producers of Pinot Noir in the country, one of the oldest, longest, most consistent producers. I think Hamilton Russell introduced their Pinot in 1980. Meerlust's first Pinot was also 1980. So it's certainly, we're not Himmel and Arda. We're a slightly different climate, but our proximity to False Bay, which is about 6 kilometers away from the farm, allows us to grow Pinot. So we actually have quite a cool growing season for Pinot, and they're at our highest altitude, which is about 120 meters above sea level. So certainly can compete with the wines from Himmel and Arda, and I would say it's certainly in the top 15 Pinots in the country, definitely.
Fantastic. There you go, Roland. Straight from the home of the wine. Last question for you guys, and sometimes this causes some controversy, and it's not meant to. It's just something that we're very interested in finding out more about. What are your thoughts on small bottles? 100 ml samples or 187 or 200 ml samples these days, with the COVID impact on consumption and changes in consumption. We've noticed that the market for stay at home and not to replace a bottle, but to act as a lead into a bottle sale. We've seen a lot more increased activity online, a lot more inquiries for sampling kits. What are your thoughts on small bottles in general? Not necessarily at Meerlust, but just your general thoughts.
Yeah, from my side, I mean, from a sampling point of view, it could complicate things. It's easier when we like bottling now, bottle 750s, and we do a couple of magnums and things like that. I'm hoping that it comes to an end. I'm not preparing to sort of send samples out to people. I mean, I would prefer to say send a 750 ml bottle out and say to them, invite some friends around, do a virtual tasting, and then perhaps if you buy a case of wine from us, we'll put that bottle back in the case for free. But to me, wine is such a social event. To do it on your own, locked up in your house, I think it's got to come to an end at some stage. And I would prefer to get out there. Hopefully, things return to normal. So I can't see us doing sample bottles at this stage. Perhaps on a replacement basis, rather invite 10 mates, have a tasting, buy a case of wine, and we'll put that bottle in the case for free and send it back to you.
I think for us on the production side, I mean, we are in a state, so we are using external bottling machines coming in to bottle our wine, and there's not a lot of them which are actually fitted to do the smaller quantities on a machine. So that's maybe a practical side of it where it's a little bit difficult. But yeah, it's definitely yeah. I suppose we really want to increase the consumption. So yeah, but yeah.
Unfortunately, we have this thing in Australia called responsible service of alcohol. And so we always have to watch these things. We all have to be licensed and carry little IDs in our pockets, which says we know how to pour wine, and it adheres to the rules. But that's the lines of questions for this evening, gents. Anything you'd like to ask anyone in Australia? Any comments that you'd like to leave us with? Any pearls of wisdom?
Well, from our side, we'd just like to say thanks, Ross. I think since you've taken over the distribution of Meerlust in Australia, we've certainly seen a growth in our export sales. So that's great. Yeah. So I'm happy that the Australians are taking to Meerlust wines. And hopefully they're not all just ex-South Africans, and hopefully we're getting some Aussies to drink it as well.
This is a good point. We, whilst that's the easy target for us, the expats, it's not our model. We really want to bring the Australians into the fold and show them the amazing wines that are coming out of South Africa, because the quality is off the charts and value for money. It's certainly over-delivered. Altus, Eddie, thank you so much for joining us. Please don't hang up yet. I'm just going to take you off the screen for a second. And yeah, thank you for your input. And we really love your wines, and keep up the good work. Altus, good luck with the winemaking. Eddie, good luck with COVID recovery.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll definitely be looking forward to that arrival of the next pallet. So that's it for this episode, everyone. Thank you for tuning in from home. I hope it's been a great experience for you talking to the guys behind Meerlust, the iconic brand. Stay tuned for the next episode. We don't have anything scheduled, but we have a couple of planned Meet the Makers. So as soon as we have dates locked in, you will be the first to know. Until next time, take care, and thanks for tuning in.